Hey, Captain Chris Myers, Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. Today I'm going to show you what causes those knots in your fly leader. A lot of people call them wind knots, but today it's perfectly calm out here and I'm going to show you how I can make those knots in my leader with no wind at all. It's not the wind that causes the knots, it's what we do as casters that cause the fly and the fly line to do something that ties itself in a knot. Normally when it's breezy, people tend to cast harder, which is something that's going to cause those knots. The knots are caused by a closed or tailing loop in the fly line. In normal fly casting, we want a loop to unroll towards the target. It looks kind of like a candy cane or a hook. When we get a loop where the fly is actually below the rod leg of that loop and the loop forms a complete circle or it's closed, and the fly can be varying degrees below that fly, the main fly line as it's unrolling, and if you have a hook on it, it's likely to catch as it comes back up above the fly line. So I'm going to show you in slow motion and regular speed what a proper loop should look like and what we do as casters that causes that closed or tailing loop. So here we're going to start out with a normal casting sequence, and on the final stroke you're going to watch the loop close or tail right there. And we slow that down, you can see how this loop, this forward loop, is open. And watch as the rod stops short, the tip bounces down and up. You can see how much shorter that stroke was and the resulting tailing or closed loop. And here it is on both the front and the back, and you can see how much shorter the stroke is, and as soon as I open up that stroke length it goes away, and if I shorten the stroke length I have to increase the power, which makes the rod overbend, and you can see the tailing loop. So you can see how short I stopped right there, and the loop will tail. That loop didn't tail, and there we have a tailing loop on the back cast. So if you're making too short of a stroke on your back cast, you might be forming a tailing loop, and if you don't turn around and watch it when you practice, you'll never know if it was right or wrong. In this particular sequence, I want you to watch how I'm throwing it much harder on the forward cast. It's overbending the rod tip stops going down and then immediately bounces back up. See it bounce down and up, and as it goes down it pulls that fly line below the straight line path and it bounces back up, and your fly ends up below the tip of your rod, which when it happens just right, it'll tie a perfect overhand loop in your fly leader, and that's how you get the wind knots. So people usually get them when they're casting really hard, trying to overcome wind and keeping a short stroke, or trying to get that extra distance, right, like I do right here in that final cast, and you stop going up and out and not stop going straight ahead. So that's a slow motion view of a tailing loop.